All right, good evening, folks. Welcome to Monday Night Law on Kirk's Law Corner. Hope you all didn't miss me too much. I went camping, went dirt bike riding, had some good time. Beat myself up a little bit. No, I didn't wreck or anything, but had a good time. All right, Facebook's being glitchy, so let me get this fixed over here. Have to Okay, seems to be working now. Okay. Everybody hear me all right? Facebook, YouTube? Thanks, CC. Just to let people know that might happen more often as I'm really trying to get out and enjoy the outdoors, where I've been putting all fun stuff um, to the side for the last few years. I've gotten to the point where I need breaks. It's getting quite overwhelming. Now, not seeing any comments over here on Facebook, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Usually there's several comments by now on Facebook. It says there's 8. Why is it not showing? Why am I not seeing them? Oh. Well, Facebook, sorry, I can't see any of your comments. I don't know what's going on here. I found it.
Put your hands up there. Yeah, you did.
Sorry about that. Well, we're without comments tonight on Facebook. I can't see them. Now I wonder if I were to open up a separate one. Let's see if it. Okay, I can see them if I go and view it. Okay. Okay, so audio's good. All right. So I found another little interesting tidbit, which I'm going to share with you guys here in a little bit. But it appears, we'll see if it's true, right? I don't know if this is 100% truth or not, but let's show what I got in an email about Hillary Clinton. Apparently possibly went through some military tribunals here. And this is the realrawnews.com. see if I can. There we go. Military tribunal on Thursday convicted former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, child trafficking, endangering a minor, treason, and sedition. The 2 male and 1 female panel of officers cast a unanimous verdict shortly after Vice Admiral John G. Hancock, who prosecuted the military's case against Clinton, showcased his final witness for the prosecution, Clinton's former strategist and lover, Huma Abedin. In exchange for leniency in a plea deal, Abedin testified she and Clinton had shared underage children with her estranged ex-husband, Anthony Weiner. Pressed to clarify her definition of the word shared, Abedin qualified her answer by saying they had practiced lewd and lascivious behavior on underprivileged minors Clinton had imported into the United States. American children, Vice Admiral Hancock asked. Yes, but not primarily. They're too easy to track. More often than not from poor countries, Abedin replied. Would you tell this tribunal how you appropriated these children? Vice Admiral Hancock asked. Hillary used her government credentials. She had carte blanche as a Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, and former First Lady. I'd be using your position of employment as an advantage now, wouldn't it, to make a gain here? It was easy for her to bring orphaned children in from places like, say, Syria, Afghanistan, or Iraq. No one asked questions. No one to look for them, Abedin replied callously. Asked to quantify their exploits, Abedin said she couldn't count the number of underage boys and girls Clinton had brought to the United States under the pretense of providing them with a fruitful life. But she told the tribunal there had been many, most of whom were later sold or donated to influential members of the Clinton cabal. Who are the people? Vice Admiral Hancock asked. We never knew exactly. It's not like Hillary peddled them for herself. She had someone handle that, and I don't know the person's name, Abedin replied. And yet she still refuses to speak, Vice Admiral Hancock observed. He asked the tribunal whether they had heard enough, that the military had presented overwhelming evidence of Clinton's atrocities against the United States and humankind. Unlike a conventional criminal trial, he reminded the commission, a unanimous verdict was not needed to convict Clinton on any of the charges. A majority vote, he said, would satisfy justice. The tribunal arrived at a guilty verdict after deliberating only 5 minutes. They found Clinton guilty on all charges the military had laid out. The murders of Seth Rich, Vince Foster, and Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, trafficking and abusing minors from Haiti and other third world nations, conspiring to assassinate a presidential candidate. As she had throughout the tribunal, Clinton stayed eerily silent as the verdict was read, and the officers recommended she receive the death penalty for her crimes. Vice Admiral Hancock asked Clinton if she had preference in how the military carried out her sentence, but still she refused to speak. You refuse counsel. You refuse to defend yourself. The tribunal therefore decides that the defendant, detainee Hillary Rodham Clinton, be hanged by the neck until dead. Vice Admiral Hancock said flatly, the sentence will be carried out on April 26 after TAPS. Huma Abedin will face her own military tribunal at a date yet to be decided, RNN has learned. So, of course, we've got audio problems. I knew it. soon as I played with that audio crap. There's something giving it feedback. I know it. Oh, you know what? I know what it is. It was my secondary window so I could see your guys' comments. It was not muted. So double feedback. So doing what I can to duplicate myself. Hopefully that cleared that audio up. So yeah, I had to open up a second window with Facebook so I could see your comments. So I'm actually watching my own live, and I thought it was stayed muted, but it did not. So we're getting the feedback from the live feed coming out, going out and back in. So hopefully that cleared that up. There you go. All right, cool. Sorry about that, folks. And yeah, the comments are not showing up on the live feed for me over here. So I have to watch my own self. Great. So yeah, you guys didn't hear any of that. I think that's worth a repeat though. All right. So Hillary Clinton. Okay, this mouse doesn't work on that screen. Make this just a little bit bigger. So apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is from Real Raw News. Clinton Military Tribunal, Day 5, was conviction April 16th. Essentially, she was convicted. Yuma Abedin is the one that testified against her. In exchange for leading a plea deal, Abedin testified she and Clinton had shared underage children with her estranged ex-husband, Anthony Weiner. Pressed to clarify her definition of the word shared, Abedin qualified her answer by saying they had practiced lewd and lascivious behavior on underprivileged minors Clinton had imported into the United States. Okay. American children? Yes, but not primarily. They're too easy to track, more often than not from poor countries. Abedin replied, would you tell this tribunal how you appropriated these children? Hillary used her government credentials. See, this is that using your position of employment or holding of office as an advantage to make a profit or a gain. This would be alluding to that's what she did here. That she used her positions of a holding of office of Secretary of State or former Secretary of State and former First Lady. It was easy for her to bring orphan children from places like Syria, Afghanistan, or Iraq. No one asked questions. No one to look for them. Abedin replied, okay, so clearly she used her clout, right, as an advantage to get away with this. Nobody questioned her, right? Oh, well, this is the former First Lady, former Secretary of State. But as Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, and former First Lady. So during the time she was Secretary of State, after the time she was Secretary of State and First Lady. Been going on for quite some time, I'm guessing. Asked to quantify their exploits, Abedin said she couldn't count the number of underage boys and girls Clinton had brought to the United States under the pretense of providing them with a fruitful life. But she told the tribunal there had been many, most of whom were later sold or donated to influential members of the Clinton cabal. Who are the people? Abedin is saying she didn't know exactly. What do you mean you don't know exactly? How about just spit out some names? You know some. It's not like Hillary peddled them herself. She had someone handle that, and I don't know the person's name. Right. And of course, Hillary's not wanting to speak. He had asked the tribunal whether they had heard enough that the military had presented overwhelming evidence of Clinton's atrocities against the United States and humankind. Unlike a conventional criminal trial, he reminded the commission a unanimous verdict was not needed to convict Clinton on any of the charges. A majority vote, he said, would satisfy justice. Now, see, this is the thing about military tribunals. It's 3 people on a panel. That's it. And the thing is it's military tribunals are not like a regular trial. Basically, only one side really talks at all, which is the military side. They present the evidence to the military, to the tribunal, to the commission there, the three people sitting on the bench, and they decide. And that's what they've decided in according to this news report here. The tribunal arrived at a guilty verdict after deliberating only 5 minutes. They found Clinton guilty on all charges the military had laid out: the murders of Seth Rich, Vince Foster, and Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, trafficking and abusing minors from Haiti and other third world nations, conspiring to assassinate a presidential candidate. Now, there is one that I went back and was reading. But as she had throughout the tribunal, Clinton stayed eerily silent as the verdict was read, and the officers recommended she receive the death penalty for her crimes. Vice Admiral asked Clinton if she had preference and how the military carried out her sentence, but still she refused to speak. You refused counsel. You refused to defend yourself. This tribunal therefore decides that the defendant, detainee Hillary Rodham Clinton, be hanged by the neck until dead. Vice Admiral Hannock said flatly, the sentence will be carried out on April 26th after taps. Huma Abedin will face her own military tribunal at a date yet to be decided. So they're all still going to be, let's look at this one. They're still all going to be tried. And I think it was this one that talks about yep, I think this is it. So this is the one, this would be the day 4, right? Wednesday's proceeding in Guantanamo Bay began with Vice Admiral John G. Hannock showing the 3-officer panel a series of email exchanges between Hillary Clinton and her campaign manager, John Podesta, that occurred on September 28th, 2016 and October 10th, 2016. The evenings after the first and second presidential debates, respectively. So this is given our timeline of when these emails were sent and exchanged. The emails, he pointed out, were not sent or received from Clinton's infamous private email server, which had been long dismantled by then, but rather a public free email service called Yandex, an alternative to Gmail. The email content would illustrate how Clinton's would illustrate how Clinton's arrogance and hubris, bolstered by her co-conspirators, imbued her with a misguided sense of invulnerability. How the military obtained these emails is less important than the content contained here. Now, see, that's the thing about military tribunals. They don't care how the evidence was obtained. Rules of evidence don't necessarily apply here. They don't care. What's paramount is digital forensics conclusively proved that these unencrypted messages originated from the detainee's laptop with an internet protocol address tied to her Chappaqua, New York home. I'm sorry I butchered that one. Chappaqua, probably, something like that. The first email sent from Clinton to Podesta was timestamped September 28, 2016 at 6:45 p.m. In it, Clinton expressed anger at the number of people in the debate audience who seemed to favor Trump's vision for America over hers. Well, duh. Tired of your shit. Excuse me. Vice President Hunter recited the brief message of the tribunal. He, Trump, is a pompous fool, but his message resonates dangerously with his F-bomb mob of deplorables. The idiot speaks and they listen. Not worried, but we should have kept a closer watch. We must keep a closer watch now. Accidents happen. 30 minutes later, Podesta replied to Clinton, they've happened before and can happen again. That's why people must be careful to avoid accidents. I'm not aware. They might be allowed lawyers in there. Chappaqua. Thank you. But my guess is she didn't care. Without nothing more than a double speak, Daily Horseman, when the taken in context, the email swap, Clinton Podesta verified innuendo suddenly became overt threats against presidential candidate. Now, here we go. Authored by Clinton, this letter was sent to Podesta the evening after the second presidential debate. And I'll read. Still can't believe that effer said I'd be in prison when he becomes president. Like he could send me to prison or become president, for that matter. And those idiots giving him a thunderous applause. His money doesn't make him invincible. I'm giving serious consideration to acid washing. I love when he uses phrases he doesn't understand. Him out of existence. He doesn't stand a chance of ever touching me. We can do it. Thoughts? These are in the emails. This is Hillary Clinton talking about wanting to murder Donald J. Trump. Your silence speaks volumes, detainee Clinton, and you do not intimidate this commission. Vice President said. Podesta sent her a reply an hour later. I don't know if you've been drinking tonight. Careful with words. He's not a nobody, and it would require tedious precautions to remove him from the stage. Might need a plumber. Got to be licensed to be a plumber, right? I argue they tacitly conspired to murder Donald Trump. Vice Admiral continued. Still, reasonable offers like yourselves probably recognize that verbal and written threats are commonplace in today's society, especially on social media. The Secret Service in 4 years investigated over 132,000 threats made against Donald Trump. And those people aren't here facing a tribunal. Clinton, as Trump's rival at the time, must be held to a higher standard than the average disgruntled Trump hater. In addition, she had a back and forth with Podesta, and that equals conspiring. Still, there's more. He asked the military police guarding the chamber doors if the military's witness was ready to testify. Oh boy. The MPs left the room a moment and returned with none other than John Podesta, shackled at the wrists and donning a white prison jumpsuit. As reported previously, U.S. Special Forces operating on Trump's authority had arrested Podesta and his wife, Mary, on Easter Sunday. The MP seated Podesta directly opposite of Clinton. Clinton opened her eyes to narrow slits like knife cuts, peering intently at her former friend and campaign manager, right? So, Vice continue. Detainee Clinton, this man faces his own tribunal soon, but unlike you, he's willing to talk. I want yes or no answers, detainee Podesta. So please do not expound on answers unless I tell you to. The emails aside, did Hillary Clinton explicitly tell you in face and in person that she intended to have Donald Trump assassinated? Yes, Podesta said, his voice a tremulous whisper. Please tell this tribunal. And now you may qualify your answer exactly what Clinton said. Hillary and I got together in Chappaqua. It was 3 days after debate number 2, and she asked me to hire someone to kill Trump. In the end, we never did it, too risky. But for days, she kept nagging me incessantly to take care of it. She was ready to pay $5 million, Podesta said. Hannock asked Podesta whom he had planned to hire. She has many ex-agency CIA friends. I had a list of 4 or 5, Podesta said. I paid one $2.5 million, wired to an offshore account, and would have paid the remainder on completion of the contract. On Hillary Clinton's instructions, Vice Admiral asked, yes. Asked the name of the would-be assassin, and Podesta said he was promised he wouldn't have to disclose the names of contract killers with whom he and Clinton had associated. Huh. Well, too bad. Was it Hillary Clinton's idea to call it off? No, it was mine. In fact, I thought it so risky I went behind her back to abort it. The guy kept the 2.5 per the arrangement. And you're not fabricating testimony because you're being guaranteed a sentence less than capital punishment in exchange for your cooperation? What I've said today is the truth. Hillary Clinton is a murderous, narcissistic, vicious woman, Podesta said, and was escorted from the tribunal chamber. So, if this is true, whoever has access to these hearings has been leaked out. So we'll have to see, right? He would present his final evidence on Thursday afternoon and urge the officers judging the military's case against Clinton to carefully and meticulously weigh each piece of evidence. The commission, he said, would resume Thursday at noon. So, again, this is the previous day. So, I have no reason to not believe that this is true, but, we don't have any hard factual evidence that it is. But we do know that military tribunals are going on. They are happening. And then I do recall looking it up and showing it on here on the show before that the military tribunal had cleared their docket here not too long ago. So I'm thinking that this actually happened. But we will see, right? There is another thing here. Where should, this one right here. So this one's a little from the same place. Whoops, did I click on the wrong one? I did. This one. So, question out there about how did Trump make the arrest when he wasn't president. Well, who's to say he's not? But, so same place, realrawnews.com. Biden denied entry to Pentagon. This was April 17th. The man who calls himself President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, was denied entry to the Pentagon on Friday. Shortly after meeting Democrat lawmakers to discuss more restrictive gun control legislation. Now, I'm going to be sharing some stuff related to this here in just a minute. There's a couple of different subject matters that I'm going to be sharing after all this news, right? One of them is going to be about this right here. Shortly after meeting Democrat lawmakers, the restrictive gun control legislation is what I'm referring to. Biden went to Arlington, Virginia to advocate the merits of his planned withdrawal of all U.S. armed forces from Afghanistan. Now, wait a minute. Weren't we just talking about how this right here? That she was getting kids from Afghanistan right there. Why do they want to pull the military out of Afghanistan? Wonder why. Because what's going on over there? Yeah. So, it also sought to convince military leaders that Iran's decision to enrich weapons-grade plutonium to 60% did not threaten U.S. interests. Senate administrations were speaking under condition of anonymity. But Biden never made it inside. Our source said U.S. Pentagon Police, part of the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, stopped Biden and his Secret Service detail in their tracks, informing them that they had standing orders to prevent Biden administration members, including Biden, from entering the building. Those orders reportedly include the use of deadly force. Kick rocks. Biden demanded to know who gave the order, stumbling through his words, and was told the directive came directly from General David H. Berger, Commandant of the United States Marine Corps, and as a ranking member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. When Biden demanded to speak with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, he was told Milley, a Biden supporter, was no longer in charge, our source said. Huh, what the heck is going on there? Biden, our source added, became belligerent, saying as the President of the United States, he had unrestricted access to all federal properties, including the Pentagon. He then instructed his three-man Secret Service detail to resolve the issue. Pentagon police drew sidearms, our source said. The Pentagon Protection Force told the Secret Service agents they'd be making a mistake, that there were over 100 inside ready to back them up if trouble started. The Secret Service didn't want any part of that and told Biden he'd have to force his way in himself if he was so inclined. Moreover, Biden purportedly muttered an unbelievable phrase, "I bet that bastard's inside." We can only guess to whom he was referring, but these guys, their guesses are meant none other than Donald J. Trump. While it seems unlikely, we must remember that Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, whatever, opposed Trump's presidency and was one of the few high-ranking military leaders who supported Biden's alleged 2020 victory. It is possible that General Milley has been overthrown and Marine Corps General David Berger has assumed command of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, in my mind, if there's going to be a hanging, yes, we most definitely want this to be in the public. People need to see this. Okay? So, for those of you who are not aware of the world child pedophilia ring and pedophilia and what's been going on for quite some time, long time. Okay. It has been happening. And, you know, to reiterate what Trump said a few years ago, that he wanted to wipe these people off the face of the earth. I believe that's starting to come to fruition. I also believe that it's already been happening for quite some time. U.S. Marshals have been out there making arrests all over the place. I've shared some of that stuff, right? So, technically speaking, if we're going to be under martial law here, but see, under admiralty jurisdiction, they're already under martial law. Right? I bet Field is dancing in his pink shorts over this. Yeah, I bet he is. And we'll be giving an update on Field here shortly. Just not quite ready to put anything out yet. But there's some good things in the work for Field. I'll just leave it at that. And believe me, we'll come out with it when it's time. Just like with some of the other things that my team and I have been working on for 4 months. Once this all goes down, once we get done what we need to do and things start happening, I'll come out and I'll share it. But as of right now, we got to keep our mouths shut. And just do what we got to do. But make no mistake, we are doing something. I can promise you that. All right. So, part of this, I think maybe I'll go into that first. You know how it talks about how our rights are not absolute. Well, let's go take a look at some previous posts I have shared on Kirk's Law Corner. All right, sucker. Oh, now you're not going to let me make you bigger. No, it won't let me make you bigger. Oh. There we go. Now, I've shared this stuff before, and I've, just want to reiterate it because it totally destroys the argument that, oh, they're not. There we go. We'll start right here. Quote from Patrick Henry: "Are we at last brought to such a humiliating and debasing degradation that we cannot be trusted with arms for our defense? Where's the difference between having our arms in possession and under our direction and having them under the management of Congress? So what's the difference here? What's the difference between us having them in our possession and under our direction and then having under the Congress? If our defense be the real object of having those arms, in whose hands can they be trusted with more propriety or equal safety to us as in our own hands?" That was the speech on the Federal Constitution, Virginia Ratifying Convention, Monday, June 9th, 1788. get down into here. Hey, there's one of the U.S. Marshals on Twitter. Was it this one? Yep. This will start one here. This goes into the, here we go, right here. This, again, you guys have seen this before, but I want to reiterate this and give rebuttal. Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 1. Definition and nature of Constitution and constitutional law. As used herein, the word Constitution means a declaration of fundamental laws or principles for the government of a nation or state. A constitution represents the supreme written will of the people regarding the framework for their government. Where a constitution asserts a certain right or lays down a certain principle of law or procedure, it speaks for the entire people as their supreme law and is the paramount authority for all that is done in pursuance of its provision. A constitution thus embodies fundamental values and articulates the citizens' common aspiration for constitutional governance and the rule of law. State constitutes likewise the supreme written will of the people in a state regarding the framework for their government and is subject only to the limitations found in the federal constitution. Although a constitution may be either written in the case of the United States or unwritten in the case of Great Britain, the word constitution, as applied to the organization of our federal and state governments, always implies a written document which is understood to have been enacted by the direct action of the people, providing for the form of their government and defining the powers of the several departments within, thus creating a fundamental law which is absolute and unalterable except through amendment by the people from which it emanated. You can't get any more clear than that. And when we're talking about bills of rights, because the Second Amendment is in a Bill of Rights, I'm going to come back to this in a minute. I'm going to jump down here to the 100. Oh, wait. Yeah, aside from this one, 15 Amjur Civil Rights Section 2. So that's Volume 15, Civil Rights Section 2. Natural rights have been described as those which rights appertain originally and essentially to each person as a human being and are inherent in his or her nature, as contrasted to civil rights, which are given, defined, and circumscribed by such positive laws enacted by civilized communities as are necessary to the maintenance of organized government. It's been said that political rights, blah, 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 are included with the more comprehensive term of civil rights, but that they are differentiating the political right as a right exercisable in the administration of government, or a right to participate directly or indirectly in the establishment or management of government, while civil rights have no relation to the establishment or management of government. So if civil rights don't have anything to do with the establishment, support, or management of government, what does that mean for natural rights? We have a natural right to defend our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness here. I'm going to have to go down to the next post because I know that I posted it here. Oh, there it is right here, Section 100. So this is Volume 16, Constitutional Law, Section 100. Constitution usually a declaration of principles of the fundamental law, many of its provisions being only commands to the legislature to enact laws, carry out the purpose of the framers of the Constitution, or mere restrictions upon the power of the legislature to pass laws. However, it is entirely within the power of those who establish and adopt the Constitution to make any of its provisions self-executing, that is, operative, without any necessity for further legislation. Criteria, which may be relevant in determining whether a constitutional provision is self-executing or not, include a description of the right in detail, such as the means for its enjoyment and protection, the absence of any directive to the legislature for further action, Aha, that's right. Now, I've showed this before, is that it has to specifically state that the legislature shall have the power to make legislation regarding this. That's what that says right there. Absence of any directive to the legislature for further action. A particularly informative legislative history is to the provisions intended operation, and as a consistency of self-execution with the scheme of rights established in the Constitution as a whole. Here's your sign. We're going to observe this, right? Observation. Even without the benefit of a declaration that they are self-executing, constitutional provisions in bills of rights, plural, more than one bill of rights. Bill of rights. This is bills of rights. And those merely declaratory of the common law are usually considered self-executing, as are provisions which specifically prohibit particular conduct, such as shall not be infringed. So not only are they absolute rights, they shall not be infringed because this is merely declaratory of the common law, and it's a bill of rights, laying down the law. But everything in the Bill of Rights was already in previous bills of rights. And rights as the law, because law is that which is laid down, ordained, or established. And declarations lay down the law. A Bill of Rights is a declaration of the law. Declaration of Rights, Declaration of Rights. Hello. So, you know, I mean, even right here in this post, a declaration of the rights of inhabitants of the Commonwealth or State of Pennsylvania, that all men are born equally free and independent and have certain natural, inherent, and inalienable rights, amongst which are enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. How are we going to do that without arms? Now, we're going to go back up, because what this means is that all those that are conspiring right now are committing a capital offense. They're trying to alter our rights. They're trying to alter the fundamental law. And that's going to be right here, Law of Nations, Book 1, Chapter 3, Section 30 and 34. Now, we've covered 34 quite a few times, but 30 is where it lays it out. Of the support of the Constitution and obedience to the laws, rights as the law. The Constitution and laws of a state are the basis of the public tranquility. That's right. Domestic tranquility versus social this is social control. They're trying to control us. So the firmest support of political authority and the security for the liberty of the citizens. But this Constitution is a vain phantom, and the best laws are useless if they be not religiously observed. This is where we're at, folks. Are we observing this? Are we observing what's going on? Wake up, wake up, wake up, people. The nation ought to then watch very attentively in order to render them equally respected by those who govern and by the people destined to obey. To attack the Constitution of the state and to violate its laws is a capital crime against society. We call that treason. That is the capital offense. And if those guilty of it are invested with authority, they add to this crime a perfidious abuse of the power with which they are entrusted. The nation ought constantly to repress them with its utmost vigor and vigilance, as to the importance of the case requires. Okay, they're trying to curtail our right to keep and bear arms, which shall not be infringed. Okay, so what's going on here? Are we exercising the utmost vigor and vigilance? It is very uncommon to see the laws and the Constitution of a state openly and boldly opposed. It is against silent and gradual attacks that a nation ought to be particularly on its guard, and that's what they've done. Sudden revolutions strike the imaginations of men. They are detailed in history. Their secret springs are developed. But we overlook the changes that insensibly happen by a long train of steps that are but slightly marked. It would be rendering nations an important service to shew from history how many states have thus entirely changed their nature and lost their original constitution. This would awaken the attention of mankind. Sure has wakened me. I'm trying to wake up the rest of the people. I thank you all for being here. Those of you who are here right now, thank you for being here. Because I know that that's why you're here. Because you want this knowledge. You want to know why this is wrong, how it's wrong, and what do we do to fix this. So how many states have done and lost their original constitution? This would awaken the attention of mankind. Now, keep this in mind right now. How many states have thus entirely changed their nature and lost their original constitution? Because this is what I'm going into next. This would awaken the attention of mankind and press thenceforth with this excellent maxim, no less essential in politics than in morals. Principiis obdesta. They would no longer shut their eyes against innovations which, though inconsiderable in themselves, may serve as steps to mount to higher and more pernicious enterprises. The malicious designs of men must be thwarted. It's a maxim of law. Okay. Now, of course, this is section 34. Here again, a very important question presents itself. It essentially belongs to the society to make laws both in relation to the manner in which it desires to be governed and to the conduct of the citizens. Now, remember, citizens are those that are bound by the Constitution. So we have the people who are the masters, both the rightful masters of both Congress and the judicial. Citizens are those that take public office. Okay. This is called the legislative power. The nation must entrust the exercise of it to the prince or to assembly, or to the assembly and to the prince jointly, which is what we've done in our form of government, is we have a governor and the legislature. It was asked whether their power extends to the fundamental laws, whether they may change the constitution of the state. The principles we have laid down lead us to decide with certainty that the authority of these legislators does not extend so far, and that they ought to consider the fundamental laws as sacred. And if the nation has not, in very express terms, given them power to change them, for the constitution of the state ought to possess stability. And since that was first established by the nation, see, hierarchy, which afterwards entrusted certain persons, now see, we're talking persons, in their proper person as acting as governor, acting as legislator, acting as whatever, that's in their proper person. With the legislative power, the fundamental laws are accepted from their commission. It is visible that the society only intended to make provisions for having the state constantly furnished with laws suited to particular conjunctures, and for that purpose gave the legislature the power of abrogating the ancient civil and political laws that were not fundamental. and of making new ones, but nothing leads us to think that it meant to submit the Constitution itself to their will. In short, it is from the Constitution that those legislators derive their power. How then can they change it without destroying the foundation of their own authority? By the fundamental laws of England, the two houses of Parliament, in concert with the king, exercise the legislative power. But if the two houses should resolve to suppress themselves and to invest the king with full and absolute authority, certainly the nation would not suffer it. And who would dare to assert that they would not have a right to oppose it? But if the Parliament entered into a debate making so considerable a change, and the whole nation was voluntarily silent upon it, this would be considered as an approbation of the act of its representatives. Now, this is what got changed in our form of government. No matter what they do, if it's outside the scope and authority, it's fraud. Back to the 9th principle of group decision making in the Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. Even if they do it, it is wholly void for any effect. That's an usurpation of power. Okay? So now I'm going to jump over here. Let's go back to some history. Right at the very beginning of our nation called America. And not necessarily the very beginning, because the very beginning would go clear back to 1606. So, but we're going to go back to the Declaration. Here we go, laying down the law again. And resolves of the First Continental Congress, October 14th, 1774. This is on avalon.law.yale.edu. Okay. Whereas since the close of the last war, the British Parliament, claiming a power of right to bind the people of America by statutes in all cases whatsoever, hath in some acts expressly imposed taxes on them, and in others, under various presences, but in fact for the purpose of raising a revenue, hath imposed rates and duties payable in these colonies, established a board of commissioners. Pay attention, guys. Pay real close attention to what our founders said right here. A board of commissioners with unconstitutional powers, and extended the jurisdiction of courts of admiralty, not only for collecting the said duties, but for the trial of causes merely arising within the body of a county. Uh-oh. And this is what we're going through again today, right? Yep. And whereas, in consequence of other statutes, judges who before held only estates at will in their offices have been made dependent on the crown alone for their salaries, and standing armies kept in times of peace. And whereas it has lately been resolved in Parliament that by force of a statute made in the 35th year of the reign of King Henry VIII, colonists may be transported to England and tried thereupon accusations for treasons and misprisons, or concealments of treasons committed in the colonies, and by a late statute such trials have been directed in cases therein mentioned. And whereas in the last session of Parliament 3 statutes were made, one entitled an act to discontinue in such manner and for such time as therein mentioned the landing and discharging, lading and shipping of goods, wares, and merchandise at the town and within the harbor of Boston, in the province of Massachusetts Bay in New England. Now, maybe this is ringing a bell for some people that has actually studied history. Massachusetts Bay, remember this? Another entitled an act for the better regulating the government of the province of Massachusetts Bay in New England. And another entitled an act for the impartial administration of justice in the cases of persons questioned for any act done by them in the execution of the law, or for the suppression of riots and tumults in the province of Massachusetts Bay and New England. And another statute was then made for making more effectual provision for the government of the province of Quebec, etc., all which statutes are impolitic, unjust, and cruel, as well as unconstitutional, and most dangerous and destructive of American rights. Okay. Now, remember, this is another declaration. This stands as true today as it did then, because this is rights. The good people of several colonies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island, Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Newcastle, Kent, Sussex on Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, justly alarmed at these arbitrary proceedings of Parliament and administration, have severally elected, constituted, and appointed deputies to meet and sit in General Congress. Oh, wait, you mean you actually elected delegates and appointed and da-da-da-da? Yep, sure did. In the city of Philadelphia, in order to obtain such establishment as their religion, laws, and liberties may not be subverted. Whereupon the deputies so appointed being now assembled in a full and free representation of these colonies, taken into their most serious consideration the best means of attaining the ends aforesaid, do, in the first place, as Englishmen, their ancestors in like cases have usually done, for asserting and vindicating their rights and liberties, declare. Here we go. We are laying down the law. That the inhabitants of the English colonies in North America, by the immutable laws of nature, the principles of the English Constitution, and the several charters of compacts, have the following rights. Ready? That they are entitled to life, liberty, and property, and they have never ceded to any foreign power whatever a right to dispose of either without their consent. That our ancestors who first settled these colonies, when we're talking about our ancestors there, is clear back to 1603, when Jamestown, Virginia was established, with the first charter of Virginia in 1606. Were at the time of their immigration from the mother country entitled to all the rights, liberties, and immunities of free and natural born subjects within the realm of England. That by such immigration they by no means forfeited, surrendered, or lost any of those rights, but that they were, and their descendants now are, there we go, and their descendants now are entitled to the exercise and enjoyment of all such of them as their local and other circumstances enable them to exercise and enjoy. I mean, we go back to the Magna Carta. Liberty is supposed to be forever perpetual. Forever. Is what they're talking about. Again, this is not the first time in history that we're going through this. That the foundation of English liberty, which would be the Magna Carta, and of all free government, is a right in the people to participate in their legislative council. And as the English colonists are not represented, and from their local and other circumstances cannot properly be represented in the British Parliament, they are entitled to a free and exclusive power of legislation in their several provincial legislatures, where their right of representation can alone be preserved. In all cases of taxation and internal policy, subject only to the negative of their sovereign, in such manner as been heretofore used and accustomed. But from the necessity of the case, and a regard to the mutual interest of both countries, we cheerfully consent to the operation of such acts of the British Parliament as are bona fide, restrained to the regulation of our external commerce. Listen carefully, folks out here. For the purpose of securing the commercial advantages of the whole empire to the mother country and the commercial benefits of its respective members, excluding every idea of taxation, internal or external, for raising a revenue on the subjects in America without their consent. I'll be damned right there. This goes right back to the Declaration for the Cause and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, interdicting all commerce onto the people. And that's what's going on here again today. They've interdicted all commerce onto the people, and they think they can regulate us. And what they've done through the birth certificate and the social security number, they've created the straw man, because suits have to be in like kind. The all capital letters, state of Idaho versus my name, your name in all capital letters is a corporate Ponzi scheme. It's by way of human trafficking, which is exactly what this was designed to thwart. And the same thing with everything else was designed to thwart human trafficking. Bills of attainder, bills of pains and penalties. It's legislation that prescribes a punishment that says, this is a crime and here's the punishment. You've been attained to pay this bill. No, that's a form of human trafficking, and I don't consent to your taxation. That the respective colonies are entitled to the common law of England, and more especially to the great and estimable privilege of being tried by their peers of the vicinage, according to the course of that law. Uh-oh. Why do you think this article, the 7th or 7th Amendment, says suits at the common law exceeding the value of $20, the right to a trial by jury shall remain in, I want to say inviolate, but it's not. It's, anyways, and no fact tried by a jury shall be heard in any court of the United States except pursuant to the rules of the common law. Imagine that. Our common law courts are not supposed to be courts of the United States, which goes right into what I'm going into next, and I'm going to show you right from our own Idaho code how they have fundamentally altered our form of government. Ready? But I'm going to let me finish this. That they are entitled to the benefit of such English statutes as exist at the time of the colonization, which have by experience been found to be applicable to their several local and other circumstances. Let's see, that His Majesty's colonies are likewise entitled to all the immunities and privileges granted confirmed to them by royal charters or secured by the several codes of provincial laws. That they have a right peaceably to assemble, consider of their grievances, and petition the king, and that all prosecutions, prohibitory proclamations, and commitments for the same are illegal. So when we file our grievances, they're not supposed to retaliate against us. But I think we the people have been derelict in our duty in claiming and exercising the right to petition, not remonstrate. I'm talking about the right to petition. Two different things. The petition is a lawsuit. A remonstrative says, hey, I don't agree with the legislation you're creating here. The petition is an actual lawsuit to frickin' sue the crap out of them, like what it talks about there. Prohibitory proclamations, like the governor's proclamations proclaiming some disaster from a natural catastrophe where there was no disaster, from an earthquake, a volcano, a tsunami, a tidal wave. Yeah, that doesn't exist. Wrong subject matter jurisdiction. Now, what is this? That the keeping of standing army in these colonies in times of peace without the consent of the legislature of that colony in which such army is kept is against law. So, hate to burst people's bubble, but the blue line is against the law. We're not supposed to have standing armies. Arm ye, arm ye, arm you, an armed body of men. That's what arm Y means. It's short for an armed body of men, to arm ye. It is indispensably necessary to good government and rendered essentially by the English Constitution, the constituent branches of the legislature be independent of each other, that therefore the exercise of legislative power in several colonies by a council appointed during pleasure by the crown is unconstitutional, dangerous, and destructive to the freedom of American legislation. See, we're seeing right here that there's a clear distinction between English legislation and American legislation. Because like I've said before and showed it, that they came over here to get away from the Roman Catholic Church, the Crown Temple Bar. For religious reasons, they separated from the English crown. Why they came over here, to get away from that crap. And they're saying it right here again, that the exercise of legislative power in several colonies by a council appointed during pleasure by the crown is unconstitutional. CDC, the WHO, these board of commissioners, they're unconstitutional. They're those interagencies. That's foreign to our form of government and repugnant to our law, and is dangerous and destructive to the freedom of American legislation. And these are all resolved. This is a fact of law. All right. So now, ready for this? Just doing some reading, right? Because reading means reading. Now, this is Idaho statutes, Idaho code, which, we've already debunked that this is not law. But let's take a look at everything that you can see on this page right here, right now. Title 1. This is the very beginning. 11101. Okay. Title 1, Chapter 1. Enumerations of courts, courts and courts officials, enumeration of courts. Courts enumerated. The following are the courts of justice of this state. Since when do we have courts of justice? When the court of justice is in the legislature. These are supposed to be courts of law, in law. Remember, common law courts are at law. Article 3 courts are in law. Courts of justice are the legislature, because that's where we establish justice in our form of government. In a monarchy, yes, they establish justice in the common law through the judicial branch. Okay? But look, the Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, the District Court, the Magistrate Division, and the District Courts. Where's the common law courts? Oh, that's right, because they're not courts of the United States, are they? But let's look at the history here. What is CCP from 1881, Section 17? Is that the Communist Chinese Party? No. Close. But wait a minute. Wait just a frickin' moment here. 1881? The Organic Act for the Territory of Idaho is 1863. These courts were already enumerated. Uh-oh. So what happened here? Let's remember a little bit of a timeline before I expose what this is and expose the truth of these courts. Gonna blow your mind, folks. You ready? First of all, again, where's our common law courts? Because those are not courts of the United States. From 1881. Who remembers when the bar was created? Oh, what's that? August 24th, 1878, in Saratoga Springs, New York. 1878. Now let's back up in history a little bit further. 1845, they extended admiralty jurisdiction onto land by a congressional act. Usurpation of power, that's a capital offense. Don't have that authority, okay? Civil War, 1861 through 1865, was about extending that admiralty jurisdiction onto the land again. It was not about slavery. Now, let's go back to this again. 1881. The Statute, Law, Revision, and Civil Procedure Act of 1881 is an act of the Parliament of the United Kingdom. That means all of these courts are United Kingdom courts. Whoa, wait a minute. They just fundamentally invaded, overthrew our Constitution, the Organic Act of the Territory of Idaho, and the actual statutes, laying down the courts prior to. Yep. Busted. That means every last freaking court, at least here in Idaho, are all unconstitutional. They're unlawful. We're not a monarchy. We're not under the United Kingdom. Your statutory law does not work here. It has no force and effect of law. Now, it does say that here the act was repealed by Section 1.1 of and Part 11 of Schedule 1 to the Statutory Law Act of 1989. I could give a rat's ass if it was repealed and you made something new. I could care less. We're not the United Kingdom. You're not in charge of us. It's fraud. Every single frickin' court is fraud. Now, Those of you who remember last Friday, what did I say? Or was it Friday or last Monday? Have you been human trafficked? Are you being human trafficked? If you've been in any one of these de facto kangaroo courts, you've been human trafficked. By them, bar members. They hold the title of nobility of Esquire from the crown. I've already showed you that right out of Beauvair's Law Dictionary, 1856 there. So that's what's going on, folks. How is it the history of our courts in Idaho start in 1881 with the CCP? You know that I'm going to take exception to this, right? And invoke the maxim of law here. The defendant by pleading or exception becomes the plaintiff. Now more than ever, folks. We need to tell on them. We need to be filing criminal complaints in your own personal case. Okay? Got it the first time. So, take your paperwork, whatever case you're in, whatever case you're in, whatever case you got, family law case, criminal case, whatever. Take your paperwork, put it in a chronological order. Start with the first document. Look at the document. Whose names are on that document? You write those names down because those are your list of defendants. And the title of the document is the what? And there's a date in there that says, here's the date that they filed this document, usually on the last page, with their signature on there. Guess what? That document is the evidence to support the claim you're being human trafficked in a foreign court, in a de facto kangaroo court. It's got the court name up there. And the fact that they're using the all capital letters names and all that crap, this is just one huge scheme, scam, and fraud of the bar. That's your list of defendants right from the paperwork. And anybody's names that are within the body of the documents, write their names down. Take them right out of your paperwork. Go to the next page. Same thing. Who did what, where, and when? Who did what, where, and when? Who did what, where, and when? Right from the document. That's your statement of facts. These people, their names are on the paperwork, filed this document because that's your evidence to support your claim that they filed that document. Okay? That's your statement of facts from the document, not from what you think. Okay? This is how you do your statement of facts. This is how I do them. I pull it directly from the document because that's my claim that you did this, and this is the evidence to support that claim. And I'm making the statements of facts right off the piece of paperwork of who did what, where, and when. You cannot go wrong going right from the paperwork. That's what makes this so easy, is if you use your paperwork. Instead of trying to think for yourself and, in all of this, you're trying to make your own statement of facts and you get way off track and you're trying to tell a story. No, grab your paperwork, put it in a chronological order, pull the names, the title of the document, and the dates right off the documents. Next, and just continue to go through your case file until you have a list of names of defendants, and lo and behold, you'll have your statement of facts done there, and you file your criminal complaint against them. Now, for more in-depth detail and all that stuff, get over there on Patreon. That's going to be in the Wednesday night workshop stuff. Okay. Here I'm doing the education stuff for free. Over there, I'm teaching more in depth. And having quite the heck of a turnout over there. So, but for those of you out here that would like to help support me and paying the bills here and what I do here, support the channels, I would greatly appreciate it if you could send those donations over to the office, being as I'm digitally challenged now because they don't like what I'm doing. They don't like the fact I'm teaching you. They don't like the fact that I'm educating you. They don't like the fact that I'm giving you the truth and the knowledge you need to take these people down. Okay? So, and yeah, that's another key. They're acting as. So like where it says city prosecuting attorney, that's their title. That's in their proper person. Okay? It's always acting as governor, acting as director of Department of Health and Welfare, acting as a city police officer, acting as, because that's in their proper person. And this is the first step of due process of law, because once you do the criminal side, you remove their immunity from being sued civilly. So you do the criminal side first, then you file your Title 42, 1983 civil rights violations. What are the rights that were violated? What was the conduct that violated your rights? Well, all be darned, you already got those statement of facts already done, because they're the same statement of facts. Those facts don't change. Just because you put them into a criminal complaint doesn't change the fact that John Doe Schmuckatelli jackass wagons over there conspired to deprive you of these rights. And you list what the right was. Don't go to Title 18, because that's criminal. When you're going civil for civil rights violations, you have to enumerate the right that was violated, like the right to due process of law. We say, oh, they violated my right to due process of law. Bingo. What was the conduct that violated that right? Well, right there. You already got your statement of facts done. So the number one thing to do first, always, get your paperwork. Get it in a chronological order. Then you go through your paperwork one page at a time. And you pull out the names right from the paperwork of who, the title of the document did what, where, and when. It's all right there in your documents, folks. All right there. Once you get your statement of facts done, you can go criminal, you can go civil, and you can go political. Those are the three types of complaints. Okay? A political complaint is a petition. Imagine that. Just like the petition for a violation of civil rights. Now, it's called a criminal complaint, but that's also a petition. So they're all complaints. They're in the form of a complaint with a statement of facts. Okay? So that's the key right there. You have the keys to your own stuff in your own paperwork. Right? It's right there. And it's go time, folks. This stuff isn't going to fix itself, but there are people there waiting for us to file those criminal complaints. Make no mistake, we have the power to take them down. And I'll admit, before all of this, they're just, no matter where you went, FBI, CIA, whatever, didn't work. They all just covered it up. Half the time would just murder somebody who had enough evidence against enough people about corruption. They just murder them. But things are different. Things have changed. Okay? Is there a time limit on it? My guess is you're asking about statute of limitations on felonies. Nope. There's no statute of limitation on human trafficking. There's no statute of limitation on treason. No. It's time to gather them up. It's time to round them up. You want to talk about drain the swamp? This is it. The plug has been pulled, folks. All you got to do is put their names down on some paperwork and name them as the defendant. Again, the maxim of law. The defendant, by pleading or exception, becomes the plaintiff. And the criminal complaint actually goes through the executive branch. Although it's filed down there at the federal district court, it goes upstairs through the executive branch. Because on application of the legislature, and if the legislature can't be convened, the executive, for invasion and domestic violence, which again is internal insurrection, an attempt to overthrow the Constitution and war against the people. That is a capital offense, punishable by death. Like it says in Title 18, 241 and 242. If it involves the attempt or kidnapping or the attempt to kidnap, the death penalty may be imposed. Okay? So let me put out that address for the office for donations, although on Facebook, it's already on my page, but those of you over here on YouTube, and also I'm aware of the Freed speech, something, what is that? Gosh, I'm drawing a blank right now. Mike Lindell got his website going there. We're supposed to have a new platform over there. Supposed to have a new platform. I went and looked at it this morning. It's not up yet. I mean, you can go to the .com. He did a live on it. Let's see. I'm putting this in right now for donations. Okay. So that's on YouTube. That's the address to send postal money orders, regular money orders. Frank, that's it. frankspeech.com. Thank you, Marcia, on Facebook over here. Let me get that over there. Let me see if I can. Okay, let's see. Will it let me? Yep. All right, so for those you'd like to help out and support over here, especially with what we're doing, I am doing something for everybody. And it is going to happen. It is going to go down. Make no mistake. But it's up. Oh, PayPal shut me down on Patreon. Well, I know. Oh, great. So PayPal must have shut me down on Patreon. So you might have to do it a different way if you're on Patreon. And I did notice that some people didn't get billed this last month. So I'm not real concerned about that for this last month. But if you could get that fixed, would be greatly appreciated. Patreon over there, patreon.com/Kirk's Law Corner, as well as kirkslawcorner.com. And yeah, once those other platforms, I know Trump was making a platform as well. So once those two platforms, come up and go, and I'm going to be getting on those by YouTube, by Facebook, won't be censored by you no more. Okay. And I know it was YouTube that, and I still may deal with that. Right now, I've got a lot bigger things on my plate than going after PayPal and Cash App, at least in my mind. So we'll see what happens later down the road with that. But I greatly appreciate the support, the likes, the follows, the shares, the love, the kindness, the prayers. And I always use prayers. Definitely for that hedge of protection. Put on that full armor of God. But don't ever forget to watch your back. Watch your six, folks. To quote Edmund Burke again, the only thing for evil men to prevail is for good men to do nothing. And that's what I'm here. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing something. I'm trying to started out doing just education, right? Now it's getting to the point where I'm really going to get with it. And I'm greatly appreciative of the team that God has sent me. There's no way I'd be able to complete all this by myself, at least within the time. I mean, it'd take me freaking forever to find all that crap. So I greatly appreciate my team here locally, what they're doing, and the people behind the scenes team, things that you've done to help make all this happen. The website, the business, and what we're working on. And I thank everyone here right now that there's much better things you could be doing, or what some people would think would be better. I can't think of anything better than sitting here trying to figure out how to fix the problem. Corruption detector, I have not. Get a hold of me with that, would you please? Send me that info. If you know about that, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you. I don't think Russia's going to attack us. I think Russia already had its upheaval and went back to Christianity. So I believe Russia and the true America get along just fine. I think that's propaganda that's been put out there for many, many, many decades. That America and Russia are this superpowers, and we're against each other. And yep, frankspeech.com. Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. And then Trump's going to have his own platform too. So I've already signed up for Kirk's Law Corner over there, as well as my personal profile for the Trump platform. And I'm waiting for the free speech there, frank speech. We get to be frank over there. Speak freely. Yep. So it's it's gonna take a few people to do this. We're gonna need more people, but we're gonna do what we can with what we got. That's for sure. And it doesn't matter what it is. If they're violating your rights, that's a crime. And all you got to do is tell on them. Okay. Try to choose your battles and stay within your skills and abilities. Don't go try and take on the world. I mean, you can't even take care of your own case. So try there first. But other than that, much love, everybody, and Patreon folks, patrons will see you over there Wednesday night for Wednesday night workshop. All right. Much love, everybody, and I may or may not be back Friday. I don't know. I might go camping again. I don't know. Trying to balance getting some rest and relaxation away from all this. It's been quite consuming, but if I'm not here on Friday, don't freak out. I know you'll miss me, but Monday Night Law will be Monday Night Law. And Wednesday Night Workshop will be Wednesday Night Workshop over on Patreon. So much love. Missed you guys too. And God bless. Have a good night.